What's good, everyone? Welcome back for another session. I've been playing around with this team build against the Cell Max Red Zone event. It's been quite interesting, and it's actually a lot of fun running this team on this particular event. So I did want to, showcase the overall team and the overall performance on the run. This isn't obviously the best of runs. There's a couple of things that I could have done a little bit better, but overall it's a decent enough run, so I did want to cover it. This team on this event, for a lack of better words, just to be 100% transparent, does heavily rely on the overall performance of the EZA INT LR cell. Basically, the transform state, you've got a bunch of built-in functions, like obviously recovering HP with the transformation, but an active skill, ultimate attack, as well as the attack and defense building up based on the amount of ki you obtain. So a lot of different drivers in terms of the overall performance of the EZA LR cell, but the other units are outside of the physical LR cell, they're pretty much all support. So obviously the physical LR can perform pretty well as well in terms of the overall performance aspect of it, but it can definitely certainly take damage in certain cases against certain types on the Cell Max, because the typing does change with every rotation. The AGL First Form Cell, the Transforming Cell unit, it's a decent unit, but definitely does pose a little bit of a liability from a defensive standpoint, depending on what state the unit's in, as well as the amount of turns. Obviously, this unit builds up the attack, depending on the transformed state. Even though the defensive increase is only for one turn, you're able to build up some attack over the course of whatever amount of turns it takes. Now, outside of those units, like I said, the Strength type Second Form Cell, for example, the Tech Androids, the INT, Dr. Gero and Android 19, all these guys are more or less supporting cast members in a sense, right? The Strength Second Form Cell is more or less just to provide a boost to the team with the Ki plus 3 and attack and defense increase of 40%. There's some stuff like built-in crits as well as damage reduction, but I don't think it necessarily applies in this scenario. But the Tech Androids, more or less, the reason why I wanted to include this unit is more or less to be able to take advantage of the active skill, which delays a single targeted enemies for one turn. So essentially, if the certain rotation on a particular point in the run isn't looking too great, obviously it's a great way to delay the enemy attacks and mitigate damage and keep your HP levels at a certain level, basically. Now, in terms of the intelligence, Dr. Gero and Android 19, again, more or less these are supporting cast members that pretty much provide the category boost of Ki plus 3 and attack and defense increase of 40% for the Android category allies on the team. So of course the rest of the units, in particular the INT LR Perfect Cell, is going to be mostly taking advantage of that. Now there is another situation where if the HP is 39% or less, you're able to foresee enemies super attack as well. So that's a built-in additional mechanic on this unit that does play a factor in terms of being able to kind of identify where the super attacks might potentially be coming from the Cell Max unit. So in a nutshell, that's kind of the overall format. I think a lot of it, again, depends on the overall performance of the EZA LR in Perfect Cell in terms of being able to transform pretty quickly. Obviously, the transform state, again, provides much more value in terms of the overall, attack stats, but damage output, but your defense is way better once you're transformed, obviously, because you're able to build it up incremental to the amount of ki you're able to obtain. So that's pretty much your go-to unit from the main attacker, but also the main defender in a sense. Like you just saw the attack stats of 23 million roughly, and then built-in additionals and crits related to it. You're able to mitigate a lot of the damage output per turn, reduce Cell Max's HP as much as possible with every turn, and ideally, you want to transform both the units or both versions of the LR in perfect cell. You know, I kind of split them out into 2 different rotations just to be able to mitigate, you know, the damage a little bit better per rotation. So the one you'll see, on one rotation you'll see, you know, INT LR cell linked up with the physical LR cell, and then depending on the other rotation, how it works out from, you know, starting position, for the most part, I think it's linked up with, you know, INT LR cells linked up with the AGL transforming cell. That's kind of the general format in terms of how I went about it. Now, that second rotation can kind of change depending on, again, how you start off your overall rotations in the beginning of battle, or, you know, the typing of the enemy itself. You know, it really does kind of depend on that. So again, you're seeing this rotation here where Cell is not transformed just yet. I did put the INT version of the unit in the first slot versus the physical, even though there's a type advantage. I feel like overall from a defensive standpoint, it seems like the INT LR cell does better than the physical version, even with the type advantage scenario. So I tended to kind of stick with that formula, and it does work out overall well. Now, again, like the 3 other units, the Strength Second Form Cell, the INT Dr. Gero and Android 19, as well as the Tech Androids, they're definitely a liability from a defensive standpoint, even in a floater 3rd spot. So if you have a bunch of attacks coming at you, you know, after the 3rd slot, you definitely do want to use items to mitigate potential damage you're taking, because, you know, for example, like these guys right here, in the first turn, if they're in the 3rd slot against the AGL version of Cell Max, they will take a lot of damage unless you're using items. In this case, I wanted to conserve my Whis item a little bit, so the past couple of trials with this event, I've been using the Icarus, which is a lower percentage, obviously, of damage reduced from the enemy attack, but it was more than enough, to be honest with you. And again, if I can use a lesser priority item versus, you know, another one, then obviously that's the way I'll go about it. But I think this rotation, I had to put in some thoughts of where I wanted to place the units, right? So ultimately, you'll see this here in a second, but the INT LR cell will be in the first slot. Just kind of get as much damage as much as possible based on the amount of ki obtained, build up that defense, you know, based on the ki spheres obtained as well. And then the strength type, I'm just hoping that is able to mitigate the damage taken as much as possible, you know, given its type advantage. It should be okay. A little bit worrisome, but I was banking on it to go about it the correct way. And again, like, as long as you're getting some crits out of this, it's great. But, you know, the additionals with 17 million, you know, unless you're getting a crit, you know, you're looking at, you know, 2 million in damage per attack. So, you know, obviously it all depends on your potential level builds overall and overall RNG of when stuff's kicking in and what have you. But in this case, you can see the defensive abilities are certainly great. You know, with the complementary added value of items, you know, it's obviously going to make things quite easier. And a lot of incoming attacks here, but, you know, the second form cell's doing pretty well. I'm pretty sure at this point an item is still active, if I'm not mistaken. Otherwise, you know, the unit will probably be taking a lot more damage. And then, of course, again, this guy, the second form, or not second form, but the AGL transforming cell, again, from a defensive standpoint, can certainly be a liability. So I obviously just threw him in the 3rd slot for that one. Thinking pretty much by within the next 1 or 2 rotations, the unit's done. So, like you see here, the cell is not transformed. A little bit of an issue, I would suppose, from, you know, a defensive standpoint, because again, the defense is way better once transformed. I ended up going with the gambit of, you know, putting the INT LR cell in the first slot, physical LR in the second, and then the tech androids in the third, because I figured from, you know, overall damage received standpoint, it seemed like just banking it on the tech androids to be able to defend well enough to survive the rotation was kind of the overall, you know, food for thought or train of thought that occurred in my mind during this run. And, you know, just to be transparent, I mean, it ended up working out overall, but there are certainly cases where you could obviously be unlucky and just be KO depending on, you know, when the super's happening, or, whatever. So a lot of it is still RNG based, but if you can minimize, I guess, the reliance on RNG to a certain degree. So overall team building and what have you kind of plays a factor with that. But I think the whole point of this team build against this type of event is it's a lot of fun, right? I mean, there's a lot of gambles that you have to make, certainly, but it's pretty streamlined and pretty. You're able to kind of see what to expect, essentially, right? Given the how the rotations work and what have you. So it wasn't too big of a concern, but I guess at the end of the day, depending on whatever run you're on, you can get very unlucky and get easily KO'd, or like the starting position for the rotations are pretty horrendous or what have you. I think the problem with this event is it's limited to 5 times per day, so obviously if you get unlucky several times, you might have to wait till the next day for that. But overall, this is a very fun team. The EZA for the LR's Perfect Cell is very nice. I enjoy it quite a bit, so I wanted to showcase this on this event. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys later. Alright, peace out.